Hello everyone and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We will be working on a new coaster station today for you guys to use in your own parks. Part of our generic coaster build series that we've been doing for quite a while now. I really enjoy this series just because it gives me something new to build every time. You know, I get to explore different genres and themes and hopefully get something that you guys like to use in your own park and hopefully inspire you all to build your own coaster stations and share your creations with the community. So, what we're going to be doing this episode is a nice kind of Egyptian theme, and it is inspired by the Osiris coaster. I believe it's in France, correct me if I'm wrong there, but it is a pretty cool coaster. It's an inverted, I believe, B&M? If my terminology is wrong, most likely. I'm not Silverette when it comes to these types of things. I just build and try and make things look nice. I don't really have the knowledge, I don't think, to go into the details or talk about weenies like he does. But what we're doing here is just establishing the base foundation. I do like to block in the foundation first, and now we're going to go ahead and make the standard shape that you're going to see in the Egyptian theme. It's going to have these slightly slanted sloped walls on 2 of the 4 sides on this kind of square foundation. The front being flat and the back being flat, but just these sides giving it a little bit of a shape. And you kind of do that so you can save a little bit on the part count, but also a little bit of the headache trying to square things up perfectly here. And the slopes will actually kind of portray a little bit like an illusion in the sense that all the other sides will look slightly slanted as well, just because of these 2 ones being sloped a little bit. So it does kind of save us time and effort. Also makes the grid alignment just a whole lot more smooth. We're going to be using copy and paste. Initially, I was going to try and use the plaster wall here just to try and keep the block count low, but that wasn't going to really match up too well with these pillars that we used to get the initial surface, so might as well just carry that throughout the whole theme. Luckily, these are very long pillars, and they do cover a decent amount of surface area. Very similar to, say, how we built the Cathedral of Light from World of Warcraft previously. And, you know, luckily I had some decent practice doing this kind of stuff before. Just going to work a little bit on the crown molding on the upper section. Wish I could dye these sandstone crown molding effects. I think that would look pretty cool. You're going to notice, because we're doing Egyptian theme, that I'm going to be using some colorful elements as well, some more wall decoration, a little bit more and different than what I'm used to. Usually I'm kind of used to doing more of a wooden motif and something a little bit more Western. This Middle Eastern theme does definitely mix it up compared to what I'm used to, so that's always a good thing. We're going to slant the back section there as well. Using the shape blocks is a great way to go ahead and get your kind of decorative elements here across the initial top, and we're going to be choosing some pretty bold colors. Now, Egypt actually had some access to these colors back fairly early, especially the blues. Indigo is a very rare kind of color back in the olden days, just because of the distance. You know, people would have to ship that out, and, you know, to get blue, say in the Renaissance period, they actually didn't use it. They used some different colors and color theory to kind of make things look more blue than they were, and then they reserved the actual true blue for like important figures in a painting. So for example, like Mary in like any religious painting, that's actually a true blue. Others are more like purples, you know, so they'll mix red into it so they can get a longer source of that color. Egypt, on the other hand, they don't have to worry about it. They can mine this stuff up and use it however they want. It's one of their favorite colors to use. And we don't really have access to making anything like hieroglyphs. That's kind of a trouble point. I would have liked to maybe make some custom little shapes, make it look like them. But that's just something, you know, I think that's too much detail for such a generic coaster that I'm designing here, though if I had more time to work on it, I'm sure we would have done that in our own park or something like that. But you know, we have to keep in mind park counts for the workshop, so you know, this can hopefully be used for you guys and to be used by people who aren't comfortable with building. Now, luckily, we can copy and paste here. Copy and paste is going to be used fairly heavily, especially to get these wooden details to be copied around, and even the back wall section there. Luckily, everything was pretty symmetrical, and you can kind of get away with a lot of stuff by using copy and paste like this, in terms of the front and back being mirrors of each other, the sides being mirrors of each other, and you can just drag and drop things around. Now, luckily, the inverted coaster I think fits this theme rather nicely. You know, the floor kind of drops away. You do have a good footprint, about a 4-meter footprint. That's about what I use standard for my structures here, and the way I do that is simply aligning the structure to the grid first, placing a wall, and then raising and lowering the structure until that wall is pretty much touching the ground, and that's how you kind of measure out the foundation for coaster stations. At least that's what I've been doing. You know, you guys can, you know, do whatever you want. There's no real hard rules for these kind of things, but raising them up off the ground means that you can actually get a little bit more potential energy out of your coasters than, say, something that was starting at absolute zero. You can also, of course, you know, make the coasters go underneath the ground level a little bit so that you can, you know, really push your coasters to their full speed and things like that. The Osiris coaster that this is based off of does that occasionally. In fact, the front fountain area on the Osiris, the coaster does go underneath the water element there, and I think that's a pretty cool thing to maybe you guys can try and do, and introduce some tunnels, things like that. That would be pretty cool, hopefully. Now, the fountain shape here, you know, just kind of made that off the top of my head kind of thing. Very standard, you know, you're gonna have a square water area and then an additional kind of forward element that will eventually build an obelisk on, and that will create a nice little detail piece more towards the entryway of the queue line and exit line. You could make that whole front area plaza as well by using that align to grid tool with the pathing, and that might look cool as well. We have more colors going into the background. It does look a little Spanish, I will admit, just because of, you know, the triangles and repeating squares. It looks maybe a little bit, you know, Mexican. But, you know, due to just not having the time and energy to make the hieroglyphs there, I think that's a good replacement. We'll also copy and paste some darker elements along the base of the structure, just so it has a darker footprint and really makes the thing look a little bit more grounded. That's kind of what I like to do in my structures. Anything that looks very grounded is something that I am happy to build and look at. It's really nice on the eyes, just because it gives you a place to rest, so that not everything is so busy and you're just constantly looking around. That can actually be strenuous to people. We're going to be using the jouster as kind of this relief sculpture into the wall. Now, we're using it for a couple of reasons. One, it's kind of the only slim humanoid sculpture that we have. Wish we had kind of more options. You know, like King Coaster, he's too big, and then also the pirate guy just doesn't make sense, nor does the princess. So we're using these. Luckily, his hat has those bells on them, and they do look a little bit like the royal crown of Egypt. You know how it has that snake, and it from afar you can kind of get away with it. Up close, of course, you're gonna notice that, hey, these are jousters, not really Egyptians. But that's, you know, things we have to use to try and portray things without actually having the theme set is a nice fun challenge for Planet Coaster. And as long as you can get the feeling right, that's, to me, all that really matters in the long run. Here, we're going to go ahead and design the obelisk. It took me 2 attempts to get this thing. Didn't really know exactly how I wanted to build it, and also it's such a thin, small structure. It's kind of hard to do with the blocks that we do have without, using a bunch of the really, really small ones. And at this point, I'm trying with these wooden elements. Didn't really like the cone at the top. It didn't really look right. Also, it wasn't really lining up perfectly. Tried filling in the gaps using some of the normal wooden beams, and the colors just didn't match. This is one of the things with Planet Coasters. Texturing is that you're coloring something the exact same color, but due to the texture and the material it's made out of, it makes a completely different shade, and you can't really match those things very well. Tried just making out of normal wood, didn't really work out for us. Scrapped it completely. Tried to go more with a thought out approach and measuring out an actual square base here using 45-degree angles, and that's going to get us our straight ledge. You can copy that around. So now I know exactly where that kind of front is going to meet, and we can kind of skin the obelisk at this point with the same colored wood. And for the top, we didn't really have a block small enough. Like, I could have used these wooden textures here, but the top was going to be so kind of mismatched in terms of color that I didn't like it. Tried going through, find a topper for it, something that might look a little bit right. Decided to try the window here, because that would have gotten us a little cone, but was a little too big for the area. And at this point I realized that, hey, let's try a shape, an actual shape to get a top little pyramid on it, and that is what we went with. Alright, so here we are after the speed build. I hope you guys enjoyed that little section. If you're curious on how this was made and tips and tricks to get this effect and to, entertain hopefully in the first 12 minutes of the video. Here we are with the finished kind of coaster station that we have here. We have a water element out front. Now, you guys are going to have to dig your own ditch to get this thing to work, and, the water, of course, in this game isn't perfect, but you can work with it and make it look pretty nice. A little bit of an element of the Nile, at least that's the reasoning I can think of, and the reasoning that we can put some greenery around the front. The obelisk turned out well. I do like, of course, the little pyramid on top. That is a pretty cool kind of golden effect on there and makes it look a little bit more rare. I could potentially line it up a little bit better, but I think for now that's about as best as we're going to get. We got some palm trees, we got ferns at the base here, we have some nice deserty looking trees, things that aren't really going to take up a whole lot of water. We have a fountain by the obelisk, and we got the coaster station itself. You guys can move the entrance and exit, doesn't really matter. It's a mere kind of pathway system. Front little balcony area, you guys can decorate however you see fit. The jesters, I actually forgot that they were fountains until just now, and they look a little weird spurting water like that. You guys can remove it. I'm okay with it because it's a theme park, so it can be a little campy. It's not really taking away too much from the structure, I don't think. We got wonderful vibrant colors going across here, large giant doorways for people to kind of walk through and be kind of awe-inspired. Inside, pretty much empty, like most of our coaster stations it seems. We're using most of the parts for the exterior, but we are using the nice kind of rival coaster. It's a inverted coaster where you ride beneath the track, and hopefully you can pull off some cool loops and corkscrews with that kind of thing there. The base shape of the station itself, of course, inspired by the Osiris coaster. I believe, again, in France. I could be wrong. Most likely wrong, as I am most of the time, I would think. And I think that's pretty much it for this episode. It's a small structure, yes, but it is charming in its own kind of way, in my opinion, and it's I don't know, I like it. I like changing it up. We built so many medieval things, we built so many fantasy things. that we've been kind of skipping over the Middle East, and you can get it to look like it using the themes that we have. You know, it's always good to kind of get away from your comfort zone. So you guys can download this from the Steam Workshop. The workshop link is in the description down below. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to leave a like so I know you guys enjoy Planet Coaster. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're new and you want to see some more creative goodness such as this. I have plenty of videos on this game and much more. And I'll see you guys in the next video.